Paraphrasing, reflecting content. The reflecting skill of paraphrasing involves two steps. One, listening carefully to the client's story, and then two, feeding back to the client a condensed, non-judgmental version of the facts and thoughts. The second step in paraphrasing involves finding the important information in a large volume of client material and repeating it in a succinct summary. If the paraphrase goes on too long, it can fatally disrupt the client's story, and he or she will not stay on track. Using a boxing analogy, the paraphrase is more like a jab. The helper goes in and out quickly. Here is an example of a paraphrasing between a helper, Paulina, and her client, Zach. Notice how paraphrase assists the helper in understanding the facts of the story and also allows the client to feel the helper is following the story. Can you tell me about what brought you in today?
Well, I am a teacher, and I've been having some problems at school recently.
Okay, can you tell me about that?
I have a group of 6th graders this year that are just wild. They won't listen, and they constantly challenge me. I've sent more kids to the office this year than I can ever remember. I've sent notes home and scheduled a lot of parent conferences.
Okay.
I guess you've got a bad group sometimes. I've been teaching for 13 years, and I've been used to working with rowdy kids. But this year, it seems like it's getting on my nerves even more.
So you're not sure if it's just a wild class or if you are overreacting?
For some reason, I'm really feeling the stress. This year, one of the teachers was fired during the first week for some unknown reason.
I see.
That has left a lot of people upset. With that kind of support from the principal, I don't know what type of year this is going to be like.
So on top of the new students, you're dealing with a new atmosphere at work?
I guess this atmosphere isn't new, but it hasn't really affected me before. I try to stay out of all the politics and all the complaining in the teacher's lounge. This year, all the teachers do is gripe. At meetings and after school, someone is always talking about it.
So for the first time, it's getting to you and it's hard to escape the gossiping.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if the gossiping is worse or if it's just me. There are a lot of things happening in my life.
You're wondering if the things going on in your life are coloring your whole viewpoint about work.
That's it. That's what is so confusing.
Let us turn our attention to what paraphrasing is and what it isn't. Now, a paraphrase is the essence of what the client says, not parroting. Do you notice how Paulina does not repeat Zach's statement exactly? Paulina rewords Zach's statement to show that she grasps the essence. The paraphrase is not a word for word reiteration. Instead, it is a distilled version of the content of the client's message that restates the facts and thoughts in different words and in a non-judgmental way. It is short and sweet and therefore does not slow the client down while he or she is disclosing. A paraphrase highlights what is important. You might think that a helper's paraphrase is just mimicking the client. However, as you can see in Paulina's paraphrase, and I quote, "You are wondering if the things going on in your life are coloring your whole viewpoint about work." End of quote. She's picking out something said and very softly guiding and underlying a key issue. Now Zach is being asked to talk about what is going on in his life outside of school that may be contributing to his feeling. A paraphrase is not a question. As the client tells his or her story, the paraphrase is used as a mirror to let the client knows that the helper is following but does not pressure the client by asking a question. Questions, especially closed questions, can interrupt the flow of the client's story and make the client feel as though he or she is under a microscope. Fourth, a paraphrase does not take sides. The helper's paraphrase does not take sides with the client by supporting his or her version of the story, but rather points out that this is the client's perspective. Paraphrasing means reflecting what the client knows to be factual, but these facts are those that are uniquely perceived by the client. Therefore, facts and the client's thoughts and perception are intertwined. And finally, to accurately reflect them and at the same time remain non-judgmental, the helper must take a neutral stance. Now, let us turn our attention to when to paraphrase and the non-judgmental listening cycle. Let us move on to when to paraphrase and the non-judgmental listening cycle. Of course, each client tells his or her story in a particular way and at a particular pace, depending on personal history, previous experiences with helpers, and present emotional condition. So it is not possible to predict the exact order in which you will use the skills you're learning. We can assume, however, that in general, helping sessions will follow a fairly similar path. We call this the non-judgmental listening cycle to emphasize that it is a repeating series of basic helping skills. The non-judgmental listening cycle is a way of conceptualizing a normal or average helping session during which you use the most common building blocks. So that you can understand, I will describe it more clearly for you. The listening cycle is repeated with each major topic the client presents. Let us listen to a condensed illustration using the major components in the non-judgmental listening cycle. Open question. Can you tell me about your relationship with your family? Minimal encourages. Okay. Yes. Can you tell me more about that? Close questions. These are important facts, so you should bear this in mind. Listen. So, Ron is your stepfather. 4. Paraphrase. In a lot of ways, Ron has acted as more of a father to you than your biological dad. 5th, reflection of feeling. You feel a bit guilty about including your stepfather. Next, reflection of meaning. Still, it's important for you to acknowledge someone who has been so supportive in your life. And finally, summarizing. You are torn between feeling disloyal to your biological father, and you think it would not be fair to leave out someone who has been there for you in a fatherly role. To conclude, the listening cycle is called non-judgmental because the helper must demonstrate the attitude of positive regard, the ability to suspend judgment and accept a person regardless of his or her actions. Without such an understanding, the client may perceive the helper's skills as cold and robotic and feel dissected rather than understood. How can you develop such a non-judgmental attitude? Practice. You can also get that skill through vicarious learning by watching videos and so on. But important thing is practice. As you practice, you will be on your way to become more effective and purposeful as you work with your clients in the helping profession. Thanks for listening. Here is the content source for the material in this video.